Well, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Jane, and today I'm going to be talking about how we can click into kind of past versions of ourselves and use that energy and inspiration. Now, one of the things that you often hear as a suggestion, maybe when you've lost your mojo or you're in a situation you want to change, maybe you really don't like your job or you've just retired and you're not sure what to do. One of the things that is frequently suggested is that you think back to what you really liked doing as a child. And the age that is often suggested is, what did you enjoy doing when you were 7 or 8? Because this is an age that you sort of got a degree of independence and autonomy, but society hasn't begun to make that seem uncool. Nobody's trying to sort of mark your creativity. There's not that kind of societal interference going on. So whether it was horse riding or making things or playing the piano or whatever, the idea is that you look back to that and then you start to bring those things back into your life. And it is really good advice. If you look back to my video last week, I talked about how when I was 7 or 8, what I would do was there was a rope ladder hanging from a cherry tree at the bottom of our garden, and I would line up my soft toys there, and I would sit and I would talk to an imaginary camera and run my TV show. And I would talk about what I'd done in the week, and I would talk about what I thought about things, and I would talk about how to make things. And here I am, almost 50 years later, and I am talking to you through a phone that is propped up. I am talking about what's been happening. I'm talking about my thoughts on things. I'm talking about making things. So that has worked really, really well. And there's another reason that it works. It's not just the topic kind of thing. It's not really just this idea of bringing something back into your life that you may have given up or may have forgotten about. It is that the nearer you get to childhood, the more likely you are to choose things to do which naturally support you. Things that will bring their own energy, their own interests. Things that will keep your nervous system balanced. So things that will quell anxiety, because these are the things that you are drawn to naturally before society and masks and all of these kinds of things get in the way. So brilliant advice. But it's not quite enough. Or certainly I didn't find it to be quite enough. And I think that the reason for that is that there is too much of a physical distance, physical discrepancy between me and my 7 or 8-year-old self. Because then I was a whirl of energy and I felt very kind of capable physically. Whereas now I have an autoimmune disease. I am always tired. And I couldn't quite connect fully in this. So then a few months ago, while looking for a photograph for a thing that we were doing in my Bloom membership program, I looked out a photograph of myself when I was 20. Now, there are really hardly any photographs of me sort of at university or before I got married. I'm married at 23. But this was one photograph which seemed to have survived the destruction. So first of all, I was delighted to see it, but then when I looked at myself, there was something there in my face, in this photograph, that I recognized as the bit of me that had got lost. Now, in this photograph, I am age 20. I remember it being taken so well. It was taken by my then boyfriend, now husband. I'm dressed in a dress that my mum made in the 1970s, late 1970s. It's very fitted. It sort of zipped up the sides. It showed off my waist. It had a long tiered skirt and a kind of off the shoulder ruffle kind of thing. It was very different from any of the other outfits at this medical ball. And it was an event that I had really not been looking forward to. Everybody who was studying medicine, it seemed, went out with other medics and was friends with other medics. It was a really, really closed space. And I was the odd one out. Ewan and I had known each other at school. We went out right the way through university. And I was seen as a little bit odd. And because of that, I really didn't like these formal occasions. In this original photo, there are 3 of us. I've cut out 2 to show you because I don't think that people really want their 20-year-old selves to be shown on YouTube randomly. But the other 2 figures in this look slightly disgusted at having been caught in a photograph with me. And my politics were very, very different. I'm quite left-wing. People tended to be bizarrely right-wing for 20-odd-year-olds. There was quite a lot of sexism and misogyny, which I called out. And I never felt comfortable there. And yet, in the photograph, I look magnificent. I look mischievous. I know that just as the photograph was taken, I had been berating somebody for a very sexist comment. I felt there was a part of me, even though frightened, was fearless. Didn't really give up what anybody thinks. Just was spirited and out there. And I recognised that it was that aspect of my personality that had, over the next 35 years, dulled. And it's that I am wanting to get back. Because how does it dull? I left university where I was in university classes where I could pretty much say anything. I could argue points. It was a very free and lively place. And after university, I went to work in kind of big institutions where it was very quickly made clear that art historians were not arty, that making things, crafts, any kind of that thing, as my hobbies, was not approved of, that it was very serious, and that I was very lowly and should keep my opinions on everything to myself. So work took the first shine, I think, off me. And then in my sort of like late 20s and 30s, like many people, I wanted to start a family. I had problems with that, had numerous miscarriages. And what that did was it stopped me trusting my body. So what you can see in this photograph is somebody who, although deeply insecure, I do remember, in my 20s, I was very insecure about what I looked like. But I did feel like I was in my body. I started to disconnect with myself. Then, I have children, and I started a business that had a big team, and it was all about looking after other people. And part of that looking after other people was keeping everything nice and safe. And then in my early 30s, I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, which is called Addison's disease, along with some other complications. And that has meant that since then, I have been chronically tired all the time. And what happens with that, if you've got chronic tiredness, when you've got chronic pain, you start to just pull back a little bit from everything. And you want to protect what energy you have, so you stop expending it needlessly on arguing or putting forward new ideas or being excited in front of people. And bit by bit by bit by bit, it just dulled me. And I think this is a very, very usual progression. And then midlife, there seems to be something about midlife that pulls the scales down from your eyes, and you realize that a whole load of things that you have been tolerating for an easy life, or that you have been too tired to push against, are ridiculous, and that really you need to do something, and you need to be more colourful, be more vibrant, make yourself heard. And it is that aspect of this photograph that I kept coming back to. So, what have I been doing? Well, I've been treating my 20-year-old self a little bit like a talisman. The photograph is in the front of my journal. It's something that I come back to every day. I've got that lodestar. I've got that idea of the feeling. I can make myself go back inside a 20-year-old's eyes more than I could a 7-year-old's. Because it's about internal spirit. It's not about physical activity. And it's messy. Looking at all of these things are messy and they are complicated. But it is a journey that I want to take. So if you are at a point in your life where you know that something has to change, you're feeling around, those scales have gone from your eyes, but you're not quite sure how it is that you should go forward, what I would say is get your photo albums out and look for a photograph of yourself where you can see that fire in your eyes. And take that photograph and spend some time with it. Spend some time with your former self, who was maybe idealistic, because God, we need more idealism. Who was confident, who hadn't been battered down by decades of people pleasing. And spend some time and see how that can inform the energy of your life. And I would love to know in the comments here what you are reconnecting with back in previous versions. Because I do think, these versions of ourselves, we maybe just slot them on top of each other like some screen print, one layer on top of another. And it's really important to take out, to really look at how you were when you were full of fire, and to bring that into the present day. So, until next Friday, something to think about. Bye-bye.